Hi, my name is Anthony Randall, and I want to share with you my story of my first realization of me knowing I was gay and coming out. We were stationed in Fallon, Nevada, where I was born. Even though my father was an officer in the military, my parents could not vote. My parents couldn't vote till 1965. So, how strange is that for my father to be an officer in the military, and yet my parents had no rights to voting in this country at the time. I remember the house that my mother fell in love with. They tried to block my father from buying the house because we were a black family moving into an all-white neighborhood in Sacramento. So when my father made an offer, they said the house was sold. Um, and this is just stuff that I've learned over the years. Apparently, he told his superior officers, and the military bought the house on behalf of my mother and father. And we moved in to this all white neighborhood in Sacramento. So, of course, the neighbors were all up in arms. But a lot of these movies that I'm seeing today is very truthful. My mother was a beautiful woman, very elegant. And these white women did not like her because she was so beautiful, and their husbands were checking her out, especially when my father was at work. I just remember not being able to play with the kids in the neighborhood because their parents would tell them, do not play with those black kids. Little by little, though, as time went on, uh, the kids were intrigued with us and we were intrigued with them. And next thing I know, we were playing dodgeball, kickball in the streets. I can remember at such a young age, maybe 6, 7, 8 years old, that I was so intrigued with all the boys. There were girls in the neighborhood too, but I just liked hanging out with the boys. Now, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't have any idea that it meant something because my brothers hung out with the boys too, but it meant a little bit more for me. I remember we had a sleepover in the garage, believe it or not. It was during the summertime, and the neighbors allowed their boys to have the sleepover in our garage. And I just remember playing these games with these boys, and we had to run around with no underwear on. And I was just so excited about that. But we all did it. You know, that's what you did when you were little boys. You did stupid stuff. Then we were stationed in Japan. And I just remember being upset because we left those friends that we built up in Sacramento growing up. But the experience of living in Japan was amazing. Cherry blossom festivals, going to different temples, and all kinds of beautiful, beautiful scenery in Japan, learning about the culture. It was amazing. We moved back to Sacramento after Japan, and then we got stationed in Germany. And when we went to Germany, I fell in love with a German kid that lived in our neighborhood called Joachim. And he was kind of like our babysitter. And I just was so intrigued by Joachim, this handsome German kid who was only 13 years old at the time, I think. I was probably 9 or 10. And I just remember following him to the bathroom and peeking around the corner, watching him pee. And he turned and looked at me and said, "Oh, no, no, you shouldn't do that." But yet he let me watch. Sounds perverted, I know, but, you know, I was only 10. And we never touched. He never did anything inappropriate. But I think that was the beginning of me coming to the realization that my sexuality was attracted to boys. We lived in Germany for about 3 years, and my parents divorced, and we came back to Sacramento. We did move back into the house that we had bought back in 1968. It was different, though, because my mother was working, and I became a latchkey child. I'm the oldest of all the other children, so I had to take care of them. So I went from being a child to a young adult quite quickly. Uh, and I had a difficult time because I was also looking at boys, trying to figure out why I was so intrigued with them. Yet all my other friends were all having girlfriends and going to parties and talking about having girlfriends and kissing them and whatnot. And I just didn't have interest in that. I had interest in boys, though. But I knew I couldn't say anything. My family was very homophobic. I remember I used to hear my father make comments about faggots when I was growing up. So I knew I couldn't come out. I knew I couldn't come out. I had a best friend. I used to hang out with him. And I think he sensed that my sexuality was challenging. And he used to tease me. He used to tease me quite a bit. It was very frustrating and it hurt. I was bullied. I was bullied quite a bit in high school, pretty much. I got into a fight with a girl because she wanted to go out with me, and I said I wasn't interested. And black women just don't take no for an answer. So she wanted to fight me. I made mistakes along the way. I really hated the public school system, so I graduated early. And I immediately signed up to American River Junior College in Sacramento. And that's when the door opened. I was in the men's restroom one day and I noticed a bunch of guys kind of lingering in the bathroom, and I didn't know anything about that at the time until I just saw a guy flash me. And I said, whoa, I didn't know that. But he smiled at me and, well, we became friends. And he was Latino and very handsome. And we just became friends. Nothing sexual, but he did tell me that there was a lot of activity in that bathroom while I was at American River Junior College for that half a year. I just remember thinking college is where it's at. And that's when I opened my eyes. I decided to move to Southern California to live with my father because my parents had divorced when I was about 18. I started going to Mount San Antonio College because I got accepted at UCLA, but I wasn't allowed to start then. And I met another group of gay men. That's when my whole life changed. I started going to parties in the valley, Pomona Valley, those areas. And I didn't realize that there was a group of other guys like me. But I was skinny, I was gangly, I don't think I was very attractive. So I would go to these places, but nobody paid any attention to me. At least I didn't think they did. While I was attending, I met a young guy named Leo. And Leo was Latino, and we became very good friends. And, well, it was an amazing friendship. I immediately was attracted to him, but yet he had no idea that I was gay. We both had girlfriends. I had a girlfriend, and he had a girlfriend. And we would double date all the time. But whenever we weren't with the two women, we were always together. And in fact, the girlfriend that I had at the time, she would always make a comment about how you're always hanging out with Leo. And I said, well, it's just what guys do. So one day I opened my heart to Leo and told him that I was attracted to him. And, well, he kind of freaked out. And it worried me because I thought, I'm going to lose that friendship. But he took a couple days off and then came back to me and said that he had been molested when he was a younger boy from one of his uncles, and that it just brought back a bad memory for him, and that he didn't think he was gay, but that his uncles used to molest him all the time, and that was just really a hard thing for him to think of. But that he adored me and that he liked our friendship, and nothing intimate wise, but we will always be friends, he told me. One day he came to me and said that he had to go home. His father was ill, and his brothers had to take care of the farm that they had up in Northern California. I was devastated because I'm losing my best friend. And even my girlfriend at the time, she was like, why are you so upset? He's just going away. He'll make other friends. But she didn't quite understand the relationship that was at hand at the time. My father was questioning why I was so upset. And, well, I wrote about this in my book about my father, but he beat me up pretty badly because he had suspected that I was having a sexual affair with him when I wasn't. But he just didn't like the idea that his son was probably gay or going to be gay. And he's trying to beat it out of me, so to speak. So to this day, I don't speak to my father. I haven't spoken to him in years. I don't care to. He's alive. He only lives a couple miles away in Corona, California. But I didn't do anything wrong. And he's the one that beat me up for being gay. I am who I am, and he created me. So he should deal with that. I had nothing to do with it. And if it's the genetics in the family that he was a sperm donor, I'm gay because of him, or partly because of him. And, my mother's genetics together. Now, what's interesting is my mother's side of the family doesn't seem to have any gay people, but my father's side does, that they just don't talk about. I ended up moving to Glendale and starting a whole new life there. And while I was in Glendale, I learned about Griffith Park. And during that time of before social media and whatnot, you would go to Griffith Park and you would drive your car around and you'd get out and you'd park and you'd walk around. And that's how I met my friends. I met some friends. I met a couple of long-term friends there. And I met this one particular friend. His name was Herb. And we just hung out all the time. And he's the one, essentially, who introduced me to West Hollywood. I knew nothing of West Hollywood. I was living in Glendale, and I just had heard of West Hollywood, but I didn't know a lot about the social scene. And Herb introduced me to it, and that's how I ended up migrating towards West Hollywood. Yeah, when I was in West Hollywood, I went to Rage with my friend Herb one time, and while I was at Rage, this man bought me a drink. And the bartender gave it to me and said, courtesy of the man at the end of the bar. It was a large man. He had a nice driving cap on, thick beard, mustache. And I thought, it's an old guy like that looking at me. But we ended up talking. His name was Tim. And we just became good friends. And there was nothing intimate in the beginning. I didn't realize that he was actually pursuing me. I just enjoyed our friendship. And then we ended up working out together at the gym. And he was committed to it. He would show up every day and meet me after work, and we'd work out at the gym. Well, he was creating this prince, so to speak. I went from this skinny kid to building all of this muscle. He introduced me to steroids. I got onto all of that. And then I just became this muscle boy.
Announce the 1994 MTV Beauty and the Beach King, please.
The 1994 Beauty and the Beach King is Tony Randall.
Hey, congratulations to Tony, right here.
He and I ended up becoming boyfriends. I was crazy in love with this man. I was crazy in love with him. I never thought I could love someone this way. And I also thought no one would love me that way. It was an amazing relationship. And then we found out he was HIV positive. Our relationship started to change. We actually had bought some property together, and it just caused a big hindrance on everything because of his status. So we ended up splitting. I ended up meeting another partner who I didn't realize was pursuing me, but I would see him at the beach in Laguna, and I would see him at parties, and he would always speak to me. And then I went to a party in San Diego, and he happened to be at the party in San Diego, and that's how we met. So he pursued me, and then one day he asked me to live with him, and I decided I would go, and I left LA and moved to San Diego. That relationship lasted 14 years. It ended abruptly because of someone else. And I just decided I don't want to be here anymore. And I moved to LA. So I've been to LA now. I've been in LA now 11 years. Back to, I thought, was going to pick up where I left off when I was in my 20s, but that wasn't the case. Everything changed. It was different. And I didn't move to West Hollywood, though. I moved to Burbank. I was a now licensed hairdresser, and I owned a salon, by the way, in San Diego for almost 15 years. And I sold it, and then I bought a salon in Burbank. And I didn't do my research. I bought the salon from an Armenian woman who had an Armenian clientele. And, well, when I took over, they wouldn't come to me because I wasn't Armenian. So I really struggled with the business. I had a difficult time. I ended up selling that business after only having it a couple of years and losing a lot of money. And I ended up finding a salon in West Hollywood where I ended up working. And I've been there to this day, well, up until the last year. And then I found out I had kidney disease. and I've been off work for the last year pending a transplant. So that's where I am now. Now, in addition to that, I started doing commercials and some TV performances that I really enjoy, and I hope I can continue doing that, even though I'm still pending a transplant. I don't know how much more I'll be able to do after the transplant, but I'm hoping to heal and get back on my feet and continue picking up where I left off, including going back to the salon and working if I can, because I missed the spot that I worked. I worked at Shorty's Barbershop in West Hollywood. The owner is an amazing person. He has been very good to me, and I feel a dedication to wanting to return and work in that environment again.